Hi, I am Mykenzie Roy, and this is the AMS show. Today, our guest is Luke Murphy, the coordinator of the Aeronautics program at the Aspen School District. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mykenzie.
Yes. I understand this is your first year teaching at Aspen School District. How is it going for you?
It's going really well. I'm having fun with the students. I'm able to pass on my love of flying to them, and it's really exciting to see the progress they're making in the program.
What is your background in aeronautics?
So all I ever wanted to do from the time I was 5 years old was fly. My dad had a single-engine airplane that he used for business, and I worked out here at the airport when I was 14 and 15 when there was a commercial glider operation, sailplanes, and I just kept plugging away at it in high school, basically studying on my own, and I got my license on my 17th birthday.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So what classes do you teach?
So I teach a high school class, which is private pilot ground school. So I'm preparing my high school students, mostly freshmen, to take their written examination for a private pilot. And then I also teach a middle school class, which is a 7th and 8th grade class with Pete Hansen. And we're having students build and fly radio-controlled airplanes, just to learn how airplanes fly and how they work.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what is the Aspen Higher Learning Flight Academy?
So Aspen Higher Learning Flight Academy is a nonprofit that owns 2 single-engine training airplanes out at the airport. And students are able to rent those airplanes for a much lower rate than they would usually be able to rent them for.
Pretty cool.
So, yeah.
Do you have any classes for middle school students?
Currently I have a 7th and 8th grade class, radio control, airplane building, and flying with myself and Pete Hansen. Yeah.
So no classes for like 5th and 6th?
Not yet, but I would anticipate we're going to be adding those
Pretty
for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the flight simulators.
So in my classroom I have 8 desktop simulators. The desktop simulators are basically just PCs, but they have airplane controls on them. They've got a yoke, they've got a throttle quadrant, and they also have rudder pedals. So all of the controls work the same way they would in a full-size airplane. In addition to those, I have a full motion simulator made by a company called Redbird, and that is set up to emulate the airplanes that we have out at the airport. And it's a really powerful training tool because it has a wraparound view, so it's as though you're sitting in the airplane and it moves with you as you move the controls. So it's very realistic.
Yes, pretty cool. Can you tell us about the trip you were taking with students to EAA AirVenture Oshkosh?
Yeah, it's going to be a really good trip. We're going to be taking about 10 high school students. It's part of a program called Aviation Exploring, which is for students 14 to 21 years old. And AirVenture is the biggest aviation gathering in the world. Happens for 1 week, the last week in July in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Cool.
All of the manufacturers are there, the military demonstration teams, anybody who has anything to do with aviation. And our students are going to be able to go there, do about 2.5 hours a day of volunteer work, and it's going to be an incredible, immersive experience. I first went to Oshkosh with my dad when I was in about 4th grade, and it's one of the things that really changed my life and really solidified my interest in flying.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Why should students learn about aeronautics and what academic skills are involved?
So some of my students will go on to become pilots. Most of them probably won't. And you get a lot more from studying aviation than just learning how to fly or learning how airplanes work. It requires a lot of discipline, a lot of perseverance. It requires solving a lot of complex problems. It requires thinking quickly, improvising, thinking on your feet. So these are skills that will serve you anywhere in life. My private pilot class is as much a study skills class and a problem-solving class as it is just a class to learn how to pass the private pilot exam. So my attitude is if somebody takes my class and never goes on to have anything to do with flying, the things that they learn in my class will serve them well for the rest of their life.
And why do you think that not a few of your students won't go on to flying?
Well, inevitably it's not always for everyone. It's expensive, it's a big time commitment, and not everybody likes it enough to commit that kind of time and money to it. And that's okay.
Yeah. So what kind of challenges are there when teaching kids flying in the mountains?
So flying in the mountains, there's a lot more to think about than there would be if you were flying at lower elevation or somewhere with flatter terrain. But because of that, our students who do learn how to fly in the mountains, I grew up here and learned how to fly in the mountains,
Yeah.
they're at a huge advantage all the way through their flying career. The airplane doesn't perform as well because the air's thinner. When the wind comes over the mountains, the air is disturbed by the mountains, so you have to think about what that's going to do to the flight path of the airplane. The weather changes much faster here than it does at lower elevation, so you have to be a lot more careful with that. So it's really a great opportunity for our students. Almost nobody learns how to gets to learn how to fly in the mountains because a very small part of the world looks like this. So it's a great opportunity for them.
So many more obstacles.
Yeah, there are.
So you're mentoring some 6th grade students this year.
I am.
Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
So it's been really good. With both of those students that I'm mentoring, I've been discussing career opportunities in aviation. And a lot of people just think, if I want to be in aviation, I've got to be a pilot. But now there's a whole new career field in flying drones.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge demand for aircraft mechanics, for people who like to work with their hands, like to fix things, airport managers, ramp agents. There's just a huge variety of jobs available, and so I've been discussing those with my students, and that's been really fun.
It must be very fun for them too.
It is, yeah.
Yes. Can you talk about the plane that you use with your program?
Yeah. So we have 2 airplanes. They're made by Diamond Aircraft, and they're now manufactured in Canada. They're Diamond Star DA-40s. So it is the 4-seat version of the Diamond. It's a single-engine airplane. It's kind of the engine is equivalent to about a Cessna 172. So it's a 4-cylinder, 180 horsepower engine. But they have enough power to do really nicely up here, and they have completely modern avionics. So the panels that you find in these airplanes and the avionics capability is better than what you would find in a lot of airliners, for instance. So they're really nice. One's a 2008 and the other one's a 2010, and they're great training airplanes. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the fundraising that supports your program?
Yeah, so the fundraising that supports the program at the school is paid for entirely with Aspen Education Foundation funds. So AEF pays my salary and buys classroom materials and all kinds of things like that. The nonprofit is also supported by donations from the community. And that allows us to rent these airplanes that would normally bill out at $225 to $250 per hour. Students are able to rent them for $145 an hour. So this really brings down the cost of earning a private pilot certificate for our students, and it's great.
That's pretty
And
amazing.
very few places have a nonprofit that's this well funded with airplanes that are this nice. So.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you offer any classes for members of our community?
Yeah, so we also flight instruct for adult pilots. If we have an adult or a college student or anybody come to us and say, I would like to learn how to fly, there are 3 of us instructing in these airplanes, and yes, we would definitely teach them how to fly. So we have the only flight school on the Aspen airport.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Is it possible for an Aspen student to get their pilot's license from taking these classes?
Yes, it is. Yep. So I'm preparing students for the knowledge portion that they're going to need to pass their written exam. And I've got a senior who is about to get his pilot's license. You could actually solo in an airplane before you got your driver's license. You can solo at 16 years old, fly by yourself, and then you can get your private pilot certificate at 17. So it's very possible, yes.
Pretty cool. Do you offer any summer flight classes?
So through the school district, we're not offering any ground school classes during the summer, but summer really is the best time for flight instruction. So for instance, for my students who pass their private pilot written exams this year, summer is a great time to really finish up the flight instruction and the solo flying part of it. The days are longer, the weather is consistently good in the mornings, we're not dealing with winter storms. I'm available because I'm off during the summer, and so I'm able to flight instruct more. So it's a really good time to fly. Yeah.
What is the best thing about working with your students?
The best thing about working with my students is being able to share something that I'm passionate about. When I look around at my students, they're like I was when I was 15. They are completely pumped about flying. And there are so few jobs where you can actually share something that you've dreamed about your entire life and that you're passionate about. And so that's very rewarding. So that's the best thing about it.
That's pretty cool. So do you fly any planes like now, or have you kind of just like stuck to like teaching kids how to fly?
Right now I primarily just flight instruct. I have a commercial certificate because you have to have that to make money flying. And then I also have a certified flight instructor certificate that allows me to teach. But pretty much the flying that I'm doing right now is teaching. I've done a little bit of flying for some skydiving, done a little bit of that. But really I'm just flight instructing at this point.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add or share with us?
Yeah, I would like to just say to students who are maybe thinking about getting involved in the program, but they're scared or they're apprehensive,
Go for it.
I would say go for it. You got nothing to lose. You can always, take another course later, or not come back and take a more advanced course. But I think that there's something for everybody in flying. Students take it for all different reasons. I asked my students on the first day of my class, why are you taking this class? And the answers were all over the place. I had people who said, well, I'd just like to be able to understand what's going on when I'm flying on an airliner.
Yeah.
There were those students who said, I've decided that I want to fly for a career, and that's great. But a lot of times people are just curious about it. So I would say go for it. Satisfy that curiosity.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Pretty cool.
It changed my life. And I think it's great. Whether you do it as a hobby, whether you just take a few classes, or whether you go on to do it for a living, I think it's awesome.
Yes, that's pretty cool. So you like to teach people who have curiosity about it and all of those kind of things?
I do, whatever their level of curiosity is.
Yes.
The first step that I like to try to just get them out for an intro flight, because everybody, even if they're not really interested in aviation, when they see the mountains from a different perspective, when they see the world from the air, it really changes their whole outlook on everything. It gives you an entirely different perspective of the world. So, if for nothing else, it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful area to fly. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, Luke, thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure listening to all your answers for our questions. Again, I am Mykenzie, and you have been watching the AMS show.